The rain poured down in thick, silver sheets, drenching the city in a cold, merciless storm. The neon lights of the Grand Hotel flickered against the slick pavement as a sleek black car rolled to a stop beneath the entrance awning. Inside, the driver stepped out quickly, rushing around to open the door. A pair of elegant, heeled boots touched the wet pavement, followed by a tall, striking woman draped in a long designer coat. Her presence was powerful, her posture regal, but none of that would matter in the next few minutes. Because in the eyes of the people inside, she wasn't a CEO. She wasn't even a guest. She was just another black woman stepping into a world that wasn't meant for her. Before we go any further, make sure to like, share, and subscribe because this story will leave you speechless. She strode through the grand entrance of the Regal Crown Hotel, the scent of fresh flowers and expensive cologne lingering in the air. Crystal chandeliers dripped from the ceiling, their golden glow illuminating the pristine marble floors. Guests in designer attire milled about, sipping champagne and murmuring in hushed, sophisticated tones. It was a place of luxury, a place of exclusivity. A place she had built from the ground up. But the young man at the front desk didn't know that. He barely looked up as she approached, his fingers still dancing over the keyboard. His uniform was crisp, his name tag glinting under the soft lights, Ethan. When he finally lifted his eyes, they flickered with something she recognized instantly, a mixture of doubt and condescension. "Can I help you?" His voice was flat, polite in a way that wasn't truly polite. "Yes," she said smoothly, sliding off her coat and shaking the rain from it. "I'd like to book a suite for the night." His eyes darted over her, taking in the designer dress, the diamond bracelet that caught the light. But then they settled on her face and the judgment was immediate. He cleared his throat, straightened his posture, and offered a tight-lipped smile. "I'm sorry, but we're fully booked," he said. A slow smile tugged at the corners of her lips. She knew this game. She had played it before. "Fully booked?" she repeated, arching a perfectly sculpted brow. "Yes, ma'am," Ethan said, his tone now laced with something almost smug. "We have no available rooms tonight." She glanced past him at the glowing screen behind the desk where a list of available rooms flickered in green. Suites. Penthouses. Luxury accommodations meant for VIPs. And she was the ultimate VIP, though he had no idea. "Strange," she murmured, tilting her head. "Because I called earlier and your system said there were several suites available." Ethan shifted on his feet, his smile faltering just slightly. But he didn't back down. "That must have been a mistake," he said smoothly. "We're completely booked." She let out a soft hum, watching him carefully. "That's unfortunate," she said, pulling out her phone and tapping the screen. "Because I'd really hate for my business partners to hear that this hotel, my hotel, turns away guests based on personal bias." Ethan's face paled. "Excuse me." She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she placed a call. Within seconds, the hotel's general manager, a middle-aged man in an expensive suit, came rushing from his office. His expression went from confusion to sheer panic the moment he saw her. "Miss Carter," he gasped. I wasn't expecting you." Ethan's head snapped toward him. "Miss Carter." The general manager swallowed hard. "You don't recognize her?" he hissed under his breath. "That's Vanessa Carter, the owner of this hotel." Ethan's face drained of all color. He looked like he wanted to melt into the floor. Vanessa didn't move. She let the weight of the moment settle, let him feel the exact same dismissal he had just given her. And then, with the grace of a queen, she leaned in ever so slightly and whispered, "Now, Ethan, tell me again. Do you have any rooms available?" Silence. And then, "Why, yes, ma'am. Of course. I can book you right now." But Vanessa wasn't finished. Not yet. Because Ethan wasn't the only one about to regret his actions tonight. Vanessa Carter didn't move as the weight of her presence pressed down on the lobby like a silent storm. The hum of conversation around them dimmed as nearby guests caught on to the tension. The general manager stood frozen, his hands fidgeting at his sides, while Ethan looked like he wanted to disappear into thin air. But Vanessa wasn't here for apologies. She wasn't here for excuses. She was here to make a point, one that no one in this hotel would ever forget. "Miss Carter, I sincerely apologize for this misunderstanding," the general manager stammered, his voice laced with panic. "Ethan was just following protocol, and I'm sure there was—" Vanessa raised a hand and he immediately fell silent. "Following protocol?" she echoed, her voice dangerously smooth. She turned back to Ethan, who flinched under her gaze. "Tell me, what protocol allows you to lie to a paying guest about room availability?" Ethan's mouth opened, then closed. He had no answer. "Because from where I'm standing," she continued, her voice still calm but edged with steel, "it looks a lot less like protocol and a lot more like discrimination." "Miss Carter," the general manager started, but she silenced him with a look. She said, fixing her eyes on Ethan again. Do you have any explanation? Any justification? Or were you just assuming that someone like me didn't belong in a place like this? Ethan swallowed hard, his face a sickly shade of white. I didn't mean. Didn't mean what? She cut in smoothly. Didn't mean to get caught? The air in the lobby was thick with tension now. Guests nearby were no longer pretending not to listen. Some were staring openly, others whispering behind their hands. But Vanessa wasn't concerned with them. She was concerned with the message she was about to send. She turned to the general manager. How many times has this happened before? His face blanched. I assure you, Miss Carter, this was an isolated incident. I'll be the judge of that, she interrupted. Pulling out her phone, she tapped a few buttons and within seconds the hotel's security footage from the past month appeared on her screen. Because this wasn't just any hotel. It was her hotel. And she had access to everything. The general manager paled further. Ethan looked like he was on the verge of passing out. Vanessa tapped her screen a few more times and suddenly a recording played out loud. Welcome to the Regal Crown Hotel, Ethan's voice came through the speakers. The footage showed him greeting a well-dressed white man just a few nights ago. Of course, sir. We have plenty of suites available. Let me upgrade you to one of our best. Vanessa let it play for a few more seconds before pausing. Then she scrolled forward, stopping at another clip, this time showing Ethan's interaction with a black couple just 2 days ago. I'm sorry, Ethan's voice said smoothly. We're fully booked tonight. A sharp intake of breath came from someone in the lobby. The evidence was clear. Crystal clear. Ethan's hands were shaking now. I can explain. Don't bother, Vanessa said coolly. You see, Ethan, I don't waste my time listening to liars. I deal with facts. And the facts tell me that you've been turning away guests based on the color of their skin. She turned to the general manager who looked like he was about to faint. And you, she said. How many times have you looked the other way? Because I find it hard to believe that this just so happened to be a one-time incident. Miss Carter, please. No, she said sharply. No more excuses. No more empty apologies. You hired him. You trained him. So, either you were blind to this discrimination or you ignored it. The general manager was sweating now. Vanessa took a slow, deliberate breath before speaking again. This hotel was built on excellence. On respect. On dignity. And right now you have staff members who are staining that legacy. She turned back to Ethan, her eyes cold. Effective immediately, you're fired. Ethan let out a strangled sound. Miss Carter, please. She held up her phone again, tapped the screen once, and security appeared from the back hallway. Escort him out, she instructed. 2 large men in black suits stepped forward, flanking Ethan. He looked at them, then at the general manager, then back at Vanessa. This isn't fair, he muttered. Vanessa's lips curled into a smirk. Fair? You denied people a room because of their skin color. Fair doesn't apply to you. The security guards took him by the arms and led him toward the entrance. The doors slid open and the storm outside raged on. For a moment, Vanessa wondered if the universe had decided to match her mood. The moment Ethan was gone, she turned back to the general manager. You're next, she said simply. His eyes widened. Miss Carter, wait. Save it, she said. You hired him. You failed to oversee your own staff. That makes you responsible. She glanced around at the stunned guests, at the wide-eyed employees, at the silent awe that had settled over the room. Then she took a slow step forward, making sure every single person could hear her next words. This is my hotel, she said, and I do not tolerate racism under my roof. The general manager let out a shaky breath. Please, Miss Carter, he whispered. Give me a chance to fix this. Vanessa studied him for a long moment. She had already made one example tonight. But was he worth making another? The lobby of the Regal Crown Hotel remained eerily silent. Every guest, every employee, every set of eyes in the room was locked onto Vanessa Carter as she stood at the center of it all, radiating authority. Ethan was gone, thrown out into the storm like the filth he had proven himself to be. But Vanessa wasn't done. Not yet. Her gaze settled on the general manager whose once confident posture had collapsed into pure desperation. He was sweating under the bright chandelier lights, his hands clasped together like a man begging for mercy. Miss Carter, please, he tried again. I swear, I didn't know this was happening. Vanessa's lips twitched, amusement flickering in her dark eyes. You expect me to believe that? I do, he insisted. Ethan acted on his own. I would never tolerate discrimination in this hotel. Vanessa sighed and reached into her coat pocket, pulling out her phone again. Let's test that theory, shall we? With a few quick taps, the security footage from a month ago popped up on the large screen mounted on the wall behind the front desk. The guests in the lobby turned their heads as a new clip played, this time showing the general manager himself. The footage showed a black couple at the counter, their luggage neatly stacked beside them. The man behind the desk, the same general manager now standing in front of Vanessa, was shaking his head. "I'm sorry," his voice rang out over the speakers. "We don't have any rooms available." The couple looked confused. The man pointed toward the screen behind the desk where available rooms were clearly listed. "But your system says there are suites available." The general manager in the footage forced a tight-lipped smile. "Oh, those are reserved for exclusive guests." The video stopped. Silence stretched across the lobby like a blade pressed against the manager's throat. The weight of his own words hung in the air, damning him more than Vanessa ever could. She turned her attention back to him, tilting her head slightly. "So, tell me again how you had no idea this was happening?" The man's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. "Miss Carter, Enough," Vanessa said, her voice slicing through his excuses like a knife. "You've humiliated black guests in my hotel. You've let racism fester in my establishment. And now you stand here, lying to my face." "Please," he whispered, his voice barely audible now. I have a family. I need this job." Vanessa studied him, letting the moment stretch long enough for him to feel the full weight of his actions. "Funny," she finally said. "How suddenly you care about fairness now that it's your future on the line." The man swallowed hard, his fingers twitching. "I swear I'll do better. I'll fix this. No, you won't," Vanessa interrupted, stepping closer until only a breath of space separated them. "Because if I let you stay, you'll only fix the parts that got you caught. You'll be more careful, more subtle. But the disease will remain." The general manager trembled, knowing what was coming next. "You're fired," she said, her voice smooth, unwavering. A gasp rippled through the staff. The man's face went slack with shock, and for a moment it seemed as if his knees might give out. "Security," Vanessa called. 2 guards stepped forward, just as they had for Ethan. The general manager turned, his eyes wide with panic. "No, wait, Miss Carter, please." Vanessa simply raised an eyebrow. And with that, the guards took him by the arms and escorted him out, the grand doors of the hotel shutting behind him with a heavy thud. The silence in the lobby remained. Vanessa exhaled softly, letting the tension settle before turning back toward the staff still standing behind the counter. Some looked nervous. Others looked awed. She stepped forward, placing her hands on the polished marble surface. "Now," she said, her voice calm but firm. "Does anyone else in this hotel have a problem serving guests of all backgrounds?" A hush fell over the employees. No one dared to move. "Good," Vanessa said smoothly. "Because starting today, we're making changes." She pulled out her phone again, sending a quick message. Within seconds, a team of executives, her top leadership, entered the lobby. They were all waiting for this moment, already prepared. "I want a full audit of our hiring practices," she instructed them. "I want every single complaint from guests over the past year reviewed. And I want real diversity and inclusion training implemented immediately." One of her executives, a sharp-looking black woman in a tailored suit, nodded. "Understood, Miss Carter." Vanessa turned back to the stunned guests watching from the lounge area. Some of them looked embarrassed, others intrigued. But she wasn't doing this for them. She was doing it for every black guest who had been denied, dismissed, or disrespected. "For those of you staying at my hotel," she said, her voice clear, commanding, "let this be a message. The Regal Crown is a place of luxury, yes, but more importantly, it is a place of equality. Anyone who has a problem with that." She let a slow smile curve her lips. "Well, there are plenty of other hotels in this city. Feel free to stay somewhere else." A few guests shifted uncomfortably but most simply nodded, impressed by the strength of her stance. Vanessa turned to her executives again. "Also, I want something else," she said. "A scholarship fund." Her team blinked in surprise. "A scholarship, ma'am?" "Yes," she said, her mind already moving ahead. "For young black students pursuing careers in hospitality and business. I want them to have opportunities to lead, to own, to change the industry. Because the best way to fight discrimination is to create more people who can't be denied entry in the first place." A slow murmur of approval spread through the room. Vanessa Carter had come here tonight to check on her hotel. Instead, she had turned it into something greater, a symbol of what true power looked like when it refused to bow. And she was just getting started. The storm outside had begun to ease, but inside the Regal Crown Hotel, the impact of Vanessa Carter's actions was only just beginning to settle. The air in the lobby was still thick with tension, but there was something else now, an undeniable shift. A shift in power, in expectations, in the very foundation of how things would run moving forward. Vanessa stood tall at the front desk, her gaze sweeping over the employees who remained. Some looked shaken. Others, like the black woman working quietly at the concierge desk, looked relieved. Vanessa knew why. How many times had employees like her seen these injustices unfold but felt powerless to stop them? How many times had they been forced to smile and bite their tongues while people like Ethan and the now-fired general manager upheld unwritten rules of exclusion? No more. Vanessa turned to the executive team she had summoned, all of whom were waiting for further instructions. The weight of what had just happened still hung in the air, but Vanessa was far from done. Effective immediately, she began, her voice strong and unwavering. This hotel will no longer operate under outdated, unchecked leadership. We are restructuring. And that starts tonight. A murmur spread through the group. Some of the executives nodded, while others exchanged uncertain glances. One of them, an older white man in a gray suit, stepped forward cautiously. "Miss Carter," he said, his tone measured, "with all due respect, this is a significant decision. Firing both the general manager and a front desk employee in the same night could cause operational instability." Vanessa arched a brow. Instability? She let the word settle, then gestured toward the security screen still frozen on the last frame of damning evidence. "You think that wasn't already causing instability?" The executive hesitated. I only mean that we should consider the business impact. We don't want to create unnecessary waves." Vanessa let out a short laugh, though there was no humor in it. "Unnecessary waves?" She took a slow step toward him, her heels clicking against the polished floor. "You're worried about making waves when this hotel, my hotel, was quietly shutting out black customers under your nose?" The man opened his mouth, but she didn't let him respond. "I want waves," she said firmly. "I want every hotel in the city to see what happens when you let discrimination rot your foundation. I want people to know that we don't operate like that. That when you step into the Regal Crown, you are stepping into a space of excellence, dignity, and opportunity for everyone." The executive swallowed hard, then slowly nodded. "Understood, Miss Carter." Vanessa turned to the rest of the team. "Effective immediately, we are promoting from within. No more hiring outsiders for leadership positions when we have dedicated employees right here who deserve a chance." She glanced toward the concierge desk, where the black woman had been watching quietly. Their eyes met, and Vanessa smiled. "What's your name?" The woman blinked, then hesitated before responding. "Danielle, ma'am. Danielle Brooks." "How long have you worked here, Danielle?" "6 years, ma'am." Vanessa's smile grew. "And in those 6 years, how many times have you been considered for management?" Danielle hesitated again, then shook her head. "Not once." Vanessa turned back to her executives. "That changes tonight." Gasps rippled through the staff as Vanessa gestured toward Danielle. "Danielle, as of this moment, you are the new assistant manager of the Regal Crown Hotel." Danielle's eyes widened. "And me?" "Yes, you," Vanessa said warmly. "Because I know you've worked twice as hard for half the recognition. I know you've carried the weight of this place on your shoulders without ever getting credit for it. And because I need people I can trust. People who actually understand what it means to treat guests with respect." Tears welled in Danielle's eyes as she put a hand over her mouth. The staff around her erupted in whispers. A few even clapped. "Thank you, Miss Carter," Danielle finally said, her voice thick with emotion. "I won't let you down." "I know you won't," Vanessa said. She turned back to her executives, her tone sharpening once more. "From now on, we will be implementing blind application processes for hiring. No more gut feelings that somehow always seem to favor the same types of candidates. No more passing over qualified black and brown employees for leadership roles. If you have a problem with that, leave now." No one moved. Vanessa gave a satisfied nod. "Good." Just then, movement at the hotel entrance caught her eye. A small group of journalists had gathered outside, their cameras flashing as they peered through the glass doors. Clearly, news of what had happened was already spreading. One of her executives stepped forward hesitantly. "Miss Carter, should we have security remove them?" Vanessa smiled. "No. Let them in." The staff's murmurs grew louder. The doors were opened, and within seconds, reporters flooded the lobby, microphones in hand. "Miss Carter, is it true you just fired your general manager on the spot for discrimination? Do you have a response to critics who say this might hurt the hotel's reputation? How do you feel about this moment?" Vanessa turned to face the cameras, her posture poised and confident. "I feel," she said slowly, that this moment was long overdue. Flashbulbs went off. Murmurs filled the room. But Vanessa wasn't done. The Regal Crown Hotel was built to represent excellence, she continued. But somewhere along the way, certain people started defining excellence in a way that excluded an entire group of guests and employees. That ends today. More flashes. More whispers. As of tonight, she declared, this hotel is not just a place of luxury. It is a place of change. Place of opportunity. A place where anyone, regardless of the color of their skin, can walk in and know they belong. A pause. Then, now if you'll excuse me, I have a hotel to run. She turned sharply on her heel, her heels clicking with finality as she strode toward the elevator. The cameras followed her every move, the murmurs growing into a full-blown media frenzy. But Vanessa Carter didn't stop. She had made her statement. She had made her impact. And tomorrow, the whole world would know it. The next morning, the sun rose over the city, casting a golden glow on the Regal Crown Hotel. But inside, the storm Vanessa Carter had unleashed the night before was still making waves. News stations were already running the story. Social media was flooded with reactions. Some people praised Vanessa for standing up against discrimination, calling her a hero. Others, mostly those who had benefited from the old ways, called her actions too extreme, claiming she was creating division. Vanessa didn't care about the noise. She sat in her office on the top floor, reviewing reports and answering calls. She had been up all night implementing changes, making sure that the Regal Crown wouldn't just survive this shift, it would thrive. A knock at the door interrupted her focus. Come in, she said without looking up. Danielle Brooks stepped inside. But this time, she wasn't just an employee. She was the new assistant manager. Good morning, Miss Carter, Danielle said, a bright energy in her voice. I just wanted to give you an update. Vanessa gestured for her to sit. Go ahead. Danielle handed over a tablet with the morning reports. Bookings have gone up 17% overnight. After the news broke, people started canceling reservations at other hotels and rebooking here. Vanessa arched a brow. 17%? Danielle grinned. Yes, ma'am. It turns out a lot of people want to support a business that actually stands for something. Vanessa chuckled. Imagine that. And Danielle hesitated. We've had over 500 job applications since last night. Vanessa looked up, surprised. 500? Yes, ma'am, Danielle said. Most of them from people who said they've worked in hotels before but never got a fair shot. They want to work for you. Vanessa leaned back in her chair, letting that sink in. She had expected backlash. She had expected a fight. But she hadn't expected this. Anything else, she asked. Danielle hesitated again, then smiled. Yes. There's someone here to see you. Vanessa frowned slightly. Who? Danielle glanced toward the door. A guest. The one you met last night. Vanessa's heart tightened. She already knew who it was. A moment later, the elderly black woman from the night before, the one who had been denied a room, stepped inside. She was dressed in a deep blue dress, elegant but simple. Miss Carter, the woman said, her voice warm. I just wanted to say thank you. Vanessa stood, walking around her desk. You don't have to thank me, she said. What happened last night should never have happened in the first place. The woman nodded. That may be true. But the way you handled it? That meant something. Vanessa studied her for a moment. May I ask your name? The woman smiled. Margaret. Margaret, Vanessa repeated. Well, Margaret, I want to make you a promise. You will always have a place at the Regal Crown Hotel. And not just as a guest. Margaret tilted her head. Oh. Vanessa took a deep breath. I've decided to start a hospitality mentorship program. I want to help more Black professionals break into this industry, whether it's in management, ownership, or even starting their own hotels one day. And I'd love for you to be part of it. Margaret's eyes widened. Me? Vanessa nodded. You've seen the way this industry works firsthand. Your experience, your wisdom, people could learn from you. For a moment, Margaret was silent. Then slowly she smiled. I'd be honored, she said. Vanessa extended her hand. Margaret took it, and in that moment, it wasn't just a handshake. It was a promise. A promise that change wasn't just happening, it was here to stay. Outside, the world was still talking. The headlines were still running. The debates were still raging. But inside the Regal Crown Hotel, Vanessa Carter had already won. The hotel was no longer just a place to stay. It was a statement. It was hers. The end.